Welcome to How to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Let's explain. Hand effect manipulation is not okay. Okay, so in this video, I'm gonna talk about hand manipulation effects and how it's just not okay. With that being said, let's get on with the rest of the video.
Chapter 2.
Okay, and so now I'm gonna talk about hand manipulation effects. In Yu-Gi-Oh, as you can see, there are 4 cards in the game that have had hand manipulation effects. First, let's talk about the first one. You can see confiscation. Confiscation has this effect. Pay 1000 life points, look at your opponent's hand, select one card in it, and discard that card. Indeed, in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh, this card was absolutely a menace. And for good reason, we can understand why it was banned. Now, you have to take consideration when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, we can play all the cards straight out of our hands. We have no resource system, no mana system, but the cards in our hand are our resource in a sense, which means any kind of hand manipulation or anything that looks at the hand and gets rid of it is a complete no-no.
Facts.
And so confiscation was then banned. A pointer was then created during this time, but however wasn't used, so it wasn't in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh, and so it didn't see a ban just yet. But Trap Dust Shoot, let's look at Trap Dust Shoot and read its effect. Activate only if your opponent has 4 more cards in their hand. Look at your opponent's hand, select one monster card in it, and return that card to its owner's deck. So Konami tried again with a hand manipulation effect, but instead of confiscation, where you would get to where the controller of the card would get to select a card in their hand and return it back. Trap Dash Shoot, you could only select a monster in your opponent's hand and you'd then return it back. Same thing, and it was a higher restriction, as we can see here, as your opponent has to have exactly 4 or more cards in their hand. Whereas with confiscation, you could just activate it at any time, as it didn't have any sort of activation conditions. But still, the premise still remains. Being able to just look at your opponent's hand, regardless of the cost that it takes to activate it, and then just put a card back into their deck is extremely powerful. And, like before, gets banned.
That's too strong.
So again, they made another card called a Pointer of the Red Lotus. Now, Pointer of the Red Lotus is they tried to balance it out by justifying it by paying 2000 life points. But for a long time, players did not know that even a Pointer of the Red Lotus existed. It was only until like in recent years, 2017, 18, 19, that a pointer was then used by majority of the player base. And paying 2000 life points, well, guess what? It's not really a cost if you get to look at your opponent's hand, return the card that they're going to use to win with, and you already see where this is going. Again, the same effect as all 3 cards that have been mentioned. It doesn't take a genius to understand it was first put to 1 and then later banned. We're seeing a recurring trend here. Any effect that manipulates a card in the hand, that just looks at the opponent's hand, just yeets a card and puts it back into the deck for no apparent reason, is completely and utterly broken and cannot stay in Yu-Gi-Oh's landscape, because the hand is the resource in Yu-Gi-Oh! And being able to remove that resource is just broken. And so, over the years, they then decided to try their hand again and created Triple Tactics Talent. Now, Triple Tactics Talent has the highest restriction out of all the hand manipulation effects that we have here. Unlike the others, your opponent has to activate a monster effect, and it's not a quick play either. It is a normal spell. So with that in mind, and it has 3 effects that you have to choose from. One of these effects is draw 2 cards. The other is take control of an opponent's monster your opponent controls in the end of until the end phase. And the other is look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 card from it and shuffle it into the deck. That sounds oddly familiar. So anyways, what do you think happened? Well, As the card was released, nothing pretty much happened with Triple Tactics Talent, and it has been in 3 for the longest time. However, in the latest TCG ban list, it now has been put to 1. We're already seeing a recurring trend here. Triple Tactics Talent has a hand manipulation effect. Regardless of the other 2 effects that are in there, the hand manipulation effect is very powerful. And I suspect in the next ban list that we'll cover in the future, Triple Tactics Talent will be banned. And let this be a lesson for Konami and a lesson for Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole. Hand manipulation effects just cannot exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! It is a big no-no. And whoever is justifying that Triple Tactics Talent should exist, then I would therefore argue and say, bring back confiscation then, bring back a Point of the Red Lotus, and bring back Trap Dust Shoot. If Triple Tactics Talent is allowed to exist, then confiscation should also be allowed to exist. So should a Pointer, and so should Trap Dust Shoot. If we don't allow any form of hand manipulation in the game to exist, then in my eyes, Triple Tactics Talent should also not exist, because the ability to just look at your opponent's hand and just yeet a card out of their hand is completely and utterly broken. The other 2 effects, I have no problem with this. Like, if it had any other effect except look at the opponent's hand, it would be absolutely fine. It would be absolutely fine. If the 3rd effect would just say, like, destroy all cards, or it said destroy all cards your opponent controls, right? That would be amazing. That would be great. The card would still be fantastic. It wouldn't need to get hit on this. It wouldn't need to be banned or limited. It would be an absolutely fantastic board-breaking card, as you'd have 3 effects to choose from. Draw 2 cards, steal a card from your opponent's field, or destroy all cards they control. Great, but it doesn't have that. It has the confiscation effect instead. And that's all I've got to say about this. Let's head on to the conclusion.
Final chapter.
And here we are at the conclusion. So here's what I want to say about hand manipulation effects. Hand manipulation effects have no place in Yu-Gi-Oh! And should not be tolerated, and by all means should all be banned. Any effect that manipulates the hand just cannot exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! As our hand in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is our resource. Since we can play cards immediately from our hand. Anything that just says look at the opponent's hand and just rip it out, complete no-no. Now, when it says randomly shuffle cards from your hand, that's a little bit different. That can be allowed to exist. But anything that directly looks at the hand, just the effect look, is already a big no-no and should not exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! This is an effect that is completely disgusting, and look has had a very bad and infamous connotation when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! No positive effects have ever come about whenever the keyword look is on a card effect. Let's bear this in mind. And I think that's all I've got to say in this video. Tune in next time as I'll talk about more things on this channel. Hope to see you soon.
We come to the end of this video. So, as I like to say, you are one step closer to becoming a Yu-Gi-Oh! Master. My fate, right, is in your hands.